Tonight on Focal Point.
Tonight's a very exciting evening. Tonight is the launch of our Discover Ulster Scots Centre, new premises here in the Cathedral Quarter in Belfast, where we hope to let visitors experience an awful lot about Ulster Scots history, Ulster Scots culture and language.
Reclaim the Night is an organisation, really, it's a night that happens all around the world where people come together at night time, usually in the winter time, to really draw attention to gender-based violence in a city.
So we're going to march to show that these streets are our streets as well, and we won't stand for gender-based violence anymore. This is a really exciting day for MenCap and for people with a learning disability in Northern Ireland. We've just cut the sod that will create our new centre for children and families, and so now the building can commence and we will be moving on with the construction and hopefully open our doors early in 2016.
Social Innovation Camp, we believe that technology has the power to address some of our most challenging social problems, and what we're trying to do today is bring together 9 challenges that we've got from the voluntary and community sector.
I love the fact that this room is full of young people who are coming up with all these brilliant and amazing ideas. So they'll begin to see that there's a place for them and their opportunity for making solutions.
We're launching our Counting the Cost survey. This is the 4th time we've done this survey. We will survey families across the UK to find out how the economic cutbacks are affecting them. The situation is getting more difficult for families with disabled children.
If it wasn't for family support sometimes financially, we'd be at a loss.
Today's conference is a culmination of Bridge of Hope's Peace 3 funded legacy programmes. The importance of today's event, and indeed the importance of the programme over the last 3 years, has been to prove that grassroots communities and leaders on the ground are the people who do ultimately lead to peace, and the people who not just build peace, but more importantly again sustain that peace.
We very strongly felt within Turris, within East Belfast, that we wanted to show the diversity of the Irish language community, that the Irish language doesn't belong to one political group or one religious group, that there are many people from all walks of life, all creeds and colours involved in the Irish language community, and that includes unionists.
Often these incidents happen without knowing anything about the victims. It's simply being judged by the colour of their skin or by their nationality. And what we want to get across is we're talking about people here, we're talking about people who want to be part of communities. It's not about international migration, that's a completely separate issue. We're talking about neighbours and friends, really.
We've had an exhibition of all art compiled by prisoners, and it's mainly paintings, and there has been some ceramic art as well.
A lot of the work is for people who they've hurt and they want to make amends, whether it be their mum or their granny or their girlfriend.
It is a pleasure for me to officially open the Ulster Scots Hub and the Discover Ulster Scots Centre here in the Cathedral Quarter this evening.
Tonight's a very exciting evening. Tonight is the launch of our Discover Ulster Scots Centre, new premises here in the Cathedral Quarter in Belfast, where we hope to let visitors experience an awful lot about Ulster Scots history, Ulster Scots culture and language. There's a lot of exhibitions, there's a lot of material here, and hopefully visitors will find it very interesting.
It's very impressive, very vibrant, bright centre to visit, and lots of information on the panels. But I think just a nice mix of information and photographs and colour, and it's a great thing that we now have this centre for people to come to, and it's very convenient to the city centre. It's a nice location here in St Anne's Quarter, so I think it'll be a big interest to people who come, not only people who come to Northern Ireland as visitors, but of course the local people as well. But for people who are coming in on the cruise ships, for example, we're not too far away from this side of the city centre, so I think it's important that it's here. It's very important in terms of telling our story as an Ulster Scots community, and it's long overdue.
It's put Ulster Scots very much at the centre of things culturally, not only in Belfast here but in Northern Ireland as a whole, and we're looking forward very much to welcoming international visitors, local people, local communities, schools and all sorts of people. It's very much a tool for us to reach out into communities and to raise awareness of Ulster Scots and the rich tradition that we have here.
It's an excellent facility. Here on the ground floor you have the entire Ulster Scots story in the form of an exhibition, and it's a really brilliant exhibition in that there's so much information. It's very visual, very informative and consistent and coherent right round. So it tells the story of a people, their history, their culture, their identity, their language and all of that. And then all of the Ulster Scots organisations have rooms and offices in the building as well.
We're going to make it a really interactive centre for locals as well as visitors. We have a conference area where we'll be having lectures, historical talks, Ulster Scots language classes. We also are going to have musical recitals, maybe at lunchtime, in the evenings, at weekends, Ulster Scots sessions. We just want to make this a hub for the community, a focal point for maybe there's not too many other places in Belfast for Ulster Scots to come together and showcase their talent and their abilities. So we're hoping to provide that and fulfil that niche.
And obviously for anybody who doesn't know their Ulster Scots history or heritage, this is a good place to come and find out about it.
Absolutely. It will be staffed at all times by people who are sort of steeped in Ulster Scots culture, from Ulster Scots cultural background, and hopefully will be able to answer any questions. We have dozens and dozens of really interesting items of free literature for people to come and take away. We have interactive computer terminals where people can look up Ulster Scots apps and relevant websites like Prony and search different databases. So hopefully anybody that comes wanting to find about Ulster Scots will leave here a wee bit wiser.
From our point of view in the Ministerial Advisory Group, we certainly hope it is a permanent home. We would like to see it develop as time goes on, and it's good that it's got the Ministerial Advisory Group on the Academy here, the Ulster Scots Agency, the Ulster Scots Community Network, and hopefully other developments as time goes on as well. So I think it is nicely placed now as a permanent home for all those organisations.
The fact that the university's coming, that you've got the MAC, that you have a whole range of other cultural organisations and community organisations, you know, there's a rich cultural scene here, and it seemed natural that if the Cathedral Quarter is to develop as the window on culture in Northern Ireland, that it was essential that Ulster Scots should be here.
It's right in the heart of our capital city, and that's a good place to be. There will be lots of visitors, and events such as Culture Night come round. Well, there's a presence here already in the Cathedral Quarter, and I hope that it is really another stepping stone in what is an ongoing cultural revival. If you go back to 1993, when some folk gathered together to set up the Ulster Scots Language Society, and then we saw the development of other organisations, the creation of the Ulster Scots Agency, all of that. It has been a forward movement. We need to do more now to get it more into the schools, more into the media, and really tell our story to the world, because it's a great story, and it's a central story, a central part of what makes Ulster what it is.
This exhibition highlights the many ways in which Ulster Scots culture, heritage and language has shaped Ireland and the province of Ulster in particular. Ulster is a multicultural province where Irish, English, Scottish strands have been intertwined throughout our history. I look forward to this new resource helping people to gain a better understanding of the Ulster Scots as a key element in our shared inheritance, and supporting a wider appreciation and respect of the multiple strands of heritage, culture, language which coexist in our society today.
We've organised a Reclaim the Night March as part of the 16 Days of Action Against Gender-Based Violence, which is a worldwide campaign. So we're going to march to show that these streets are our streets as well, and we won't stand for gender-based violence anymore.
Reclaim the Night is an organisation, really, it's a night that happens all around the world where people come together at night time, usually in the winter time, to really draw attention to gender-based violence in a city. So Hollaback Belfast, which is an anti-street harassment organisation, and the Belfast Feminist Network have jointly started Reclaim the Night here in Belfast to just draw attention to that issue.
As a women's officer, I represent every single woman student across Northern Ireland in both FE and HE institutions, and I run various campaigns to promote women's equality, particularly in education. I think in terms of lad culture is a big issue. Groups of male students after nights out sort of targeting women, shouting very inappropriate things of a sexual nature that even if there isn't a threat of actual sexual violence can be very intimidating. It's something that a lot of students have come to me and other women's sabbatical officers across Northern Ireland about, and it's not okay, it's something that we're taking very seriously.
Our work is to cover areas such as domestic violence, such as immigration and violence against women. So this is very poignant to us because it raises the profile and it makes us be seen to be proactive in the community. So our work is very interconnected with what is done here tonight. It's something that ethnic minorities face, but it's something that they cannot, there's nothing they can do about it because the bureaucracy of Northern Ireland is that everything that you have to take to the authorities, the first question they would ask you is your immigration status. So they put women at more risk because some women are afraid to go to the authorities, so there's that breach of trust.
But gender-based violence covers everything from street harassment, stalking, domestic violence, right up to rape and sexual assault, which are all huge issues. We have low conviction rates when it comes to sexual assault, but we also have low reporting rates, which means it's a largely silent crime. So we're standing in solidarity with anyone who's experienced gender-based violence and to try and encourage them to have a voice and to know that we're behind them and we believe them.
What do we want? Safe streets! What do we want? Hollaback Belfast, we launched about 2 years ago. We're an anti-street harassment organisation, so what we do is we collect stories from people all around Belfast and wider Northern Ireland of when they experience street harassment, and whether that be verbal, non-verbal, physical or non-physical, they will report into our website, which is belfast.ihollaback.org, and then we chart it on a map. Wider than that, we do workshops, educational speeches, anything really where people want to draw attention to street harassment. And the aim of that really is double. We have first aim to let people know that one, they're not alone, that street harassment does happen to the majority of women and the majority of people in the LGBTQ community, so that you have support there, you know that it happens to everyone else and that it is a big deal and that you're okay to feel scared or annoyed. And the second reason is to try and give a voice to this issue, to try and identify it and maybe come up with some ways to try and eradicate street harassment from Belfast.
We promote the use of the Hollaback app, so that people can track whereabouts they are particularly targeted by street harassment. And we found that the student areas, particularly around Belfast, are the worst hit. So I'm working on a campaign at the moment with Hollaback to try and get universities to tackle this. NUS did some research, and 1 in 3 women students face sexual harassment and street harassment on campus every single day, and with 64% of women students saying that they don't think the universities were doing enough to actually tackle the issues of street harassment and sexual violence on campus.
In Belfast, what we have experienced with Hollaback, a lot of the stories we receive are a lot of harassment of younger girls, so from 14 up really, that's when people start to experience street harassment in Belfast. We also get a lot of stories from the LGBTQ community here in Belfast. There does seem to be a lot of casual homophobia, a lot of not so casual homophobia, and so that's two of the main things we at Hollaback are really here to try and tackle.
We are hoping to raise our profile as BME women, that we are part of the community, we are in society and we are here to stay, and we want our voices heard. But with regard with the government and other authorities such as the police services of Northern Ireland, we want them to stop marginalising us as a group, but to listen to us as victims like any other victim from Northern Ireland, and not to use the immigration or the laws to prevent us from speaking out.
We see issues surrounding sexual assault, sexual harassment, street harassment. They're told that you shouldn't have been walking here, you shouldn't have been going there, you shouldn't have been wearing that. What we're really trying to do today is draw a light and say, actually no, we're putting an end to victim blaming. You should be able to have equal access to public space, and everyone should be able to walk anywhere they want, wearing whatever they want at whatever time. So while it may not seem like the most topical issue, what we have found, both at Hollaback Belfast and in the Belfast Feminist Network, that everyone we speak to does feel quite strongly about this issue. You know, they do feel scared walking out alone at night. They do feel like if they are going to get attacked that they might be blamed for being there in the first place. So while it might not be an issue that's talked about a lot, for a lot of people it is something that they think about, you know, every night or whenever they're going outside their house.
I'd like to see more of a conversation and more of a dialogue, and people actually taking this situation seriously. I think a lot of people think that catcalling is a trivial thing, that making comments to women on the streets is okay, or that it's even a compliment, and we need to change that culture and make sure that people know that it's not okay, and that no matter if you're a woman, LGBT, woman of colour, any race, gender or ethnicity, you should be able to walk down without being commented on your appearance or otherwise.
This is a really exciting day for MenCap and for people with a learning disability in Northern Ireland. We've just cut the sod that will create our new centre for children and families, and so now the building can commence and we will be moving on with the construction and hopefully open our doors early in 2016. At the moment we have an early intervention service in a Victorian building that we've outgrown. It's no longer fit for purpose, so we're looking very forward to having a modern flagship building that people with a learning disability, children can come from the very earliest years, families can come along, get to know each other, get the right support at the right time, and actually really connect to each other and to MenCap.
Peter was born in 1988 with multiple disabilities, and for the first 2 years of Peter's life we spent every week somewhere in hospital, either seeing a consultant or a therapist, and it was getting very disparate. There was no overall control of what was happening to Peter. And one day I was sitting with a clinical psychologist and just cried and said, I can't keep this up. We were running everywhere. And she took pity on me and said, leave it with me. And the next thing we got a phone call saying, go to Seagull House to start the nursery unit there. And when we went to Seagull House to start the nursery unit, we found the most wonderful place where it was really child-centred, baby-centred. I mean, they were there from babies. People were coming from apart for as Oma or Newry. It was the only facility of its kind in Northern Ireland, really. And while Peter was there, he learned socialising skills, he learned how to play. He got all his therapies. He had speech therapy, occupational therapy, physiotherapy. You'll hear how good the speech therapy was in a minute. And it was a really, really magical place for us as a family. And they really have outgrown Annandale Avenue. We're absolutely delighted that Seagull House have managed now to get this.
In many senses it's exactly the same as any other nursery. It's a place where children will learn, they will play, they will meet new friends, their families will share stories and experiences as they meet at the gate or as they meet over a cup of tea or coffee. But what's particularly different about this nursery will be that it will actually bring in therapeutic input. So we will have a range of therapy staff who are provided by the local Health and Social Care Trust. And so under one roof, children with a learning disability and families will get the right support at the right time, whether that's therapeutic input, whether that's the chance to meet each other, whether that's a chance to find out information either about their child's condition or about what benefits they might be entitled to, or just actually having time to chat to each other.
I thought Seagull House was very, very good. Memories are very good as well. Met a lovely guy who I became friendly with from school. Connor McKenna. Connor and I became best friends. We ate lunch together, we just sat together, played together.
Peter did use the soft play area, which was sort of lights and soft play, which was a wonderful facility. But also it was a great support network because we had mothers groups. We used to meet to fundraise. And you could talk openly. Everybody knew how everyone else felt. Sometimes you couldn't talk to outside about how you felt. Everyone was empathic. Everybody knew how the other felt. And we were there to support each other and have fun at the same time sometimes.
Well, I think there's a lot of evidence to show that the first years of any child's life are really quite critical. There's a window of opportunity in terms of learning new things and finding your way in the world. And if that's true for children, that's certainly very true for children children with a learning disability. They need to learn the same skills, they need to gain an understanding of the world in the same way as any other child. They need to play in the same way as any other child. But it's even more important that the effects of their disability is minimised, that in fact that they gain as much independence as possible, and that they can go on then to have the future that they and their family want. There'll also be spaces that communities, people in the community, services in the community groups can come along and actually join us in our centre.
Well, the council got involved in this project quite a number of years ago, and indeed we were looking for premises of our own for a community centre here in this area, and then the school became vacant, and then MenCap approached us, and instead of working one against the other, we decided we would support MenCap, and so that's how we got to be involved, and it went through the council, through the planning, and we supported it all the way. The people in the area were very glad to have this kind of facility here. What they didn't want, I don't think, was a lot more houses, so this shares a very good purpose, and from MenCap's point of view, it's a secure area for people to come to. So we're very pleased to have it here, and I have no doubt that it'll be used by this community as well as the MenCap people themselves, so it'll serve a good purpose.
Well, we hope to open the doors early 2016, and so far everything's on track, and so we're hoping that we will enter the building early 2016. The hopes for the building is in fact the dream for children with a learning disability and MenCap, that they will find their true futures by coming along to the centre where they and their families will get the support that they need, that they will actually find others who are in a similar situation to themselves, and importantly that people in the local community will come along, be part in fact of the centre and take part in our fun and our activities.
What would be the most important thing you think that should be in this new building then?
I think somewhere where children who have a learning disability can play, meet new friends and more interesting activities as well.
This event is the culmination of the Social Innovation Camp project, which has been going on over the last 3 or 4 months. Basically, in terms of social innovation, what we're interested in is finding creative ways of designing innovative solutions to social problems. So there's various charities here today, voluntary organisations who've come up with challenges, the social problems that they're working on, where they think that digital technology could help enhance their social impact.
So we are covering community engagement, data, volunteering, LGBT, support for LGBT people, quite a number of employment, a couple of apps around kind of healthcare as well.
Our challenge today was how we could reconnect with our local community. There's 800 households in Sandy Row, and we would like to find a digital technological way as to how we could kind of keep in touch and be involved with our community. So it was a real way to do some digital community engagement.
We've decided to come up with a product, so advertising is key, so we've come up with a product that hopefully people will appreciate and use rather than just say, oh, this is a basic product and throw out. And also develop an app. An app is used has been developed recently for Cara Friend, but we're hoping to develop upon that and make it more user friendly, not just for the volunteers but for the users as well.
And before this event, did Cara Friend engage with digital technologies beforehand?
Well, they have a website, but it's quite basic at this point, and also they've only actually developed their app since July, so it's still in its infancy at this point. And there is a range of users. There are from 14 years of age to 80 years of age, so they have to encompass everybody. So there will be people still using the old phone-in kind of concept, but it's something that still needs to be developed because it's still very basic in the terms of technology that they use.
Is there not a risk of society assuming that digital can accommodate and solve all of our problems?
No, because fundamentally it actually ends up not being about the technology, but sometimes what happens is the tech becomes a way that people can interact in a kind of better way. We're not trying to get people to sit at home and play with their mobile phones or play with their computers anymore, but just like Amazon has revolutionized shopping, or the way that that the internet has revolutionized kind of the way we get news and the way we talk to each other, the way we publish books and magazines. We're looking for those kind of revolutions and those kind of positive changes in the way that we kind of deal with our social challenges.
When we say that digital technology can help solve social problems, we mean just that. We don't mean that digital technology in and of itself will solve social problems, but it certainly has a role to play. I mean, I think it has to be recognized that digital technology really helps for organizations to reach new people, and it also helps or provides opportunities for people to become engaged with their communities and with society in ways that they hadn't before.
Is there not a risk of depraved societies and older generations of being left behind in a new digital age?
There's two sort of answers to that problem. One is making sure that the technology that is designed is appropriate for the people. So if you're looking at people trying to design an app for the latest whiz-bang smartphone, that's probably not going to go to your nan. But at the same time, there are loads of routes into technology. So digital television, smart TVs are an interesting route to kind of engage the older population. The other thing is that technology is an interesting way to kind of address a problem, and it's really good at addressing problems across unusual or interesting niches. So you might say our solution doesn't work for all older people, but it will work for older people with smartphones. So it's a way to kind of chip away at the problem, and then you might find other people that can be addressed in different ways.
I love the fact that this room is full of young people who are coming up with all these brilliant and amazing ideas, and you've got opportunities for them to connect with places like the Fab Lab, and they get to see like the voluntary and community sector infrastructure, so they'll begin to see that there's a place for them and their opportunity for making solutions, and I really hope that they begin to develop themselves within their chosen career path and stay here in Northern Ireland because they'll see an opportunity.
Roughly how much was the funding invested in this social innovations camp, and what are the long-term outcomes you hope to see from it?
Well, we invested around £130,000 in this project, and that stretches back actually over about a year and a half. So in terms of, from our perspective, our outcomes are really around demonstrating that this kind of approach, this kind of social innovation approach, has real applicability in Northern Ireland, and we hope that others in the voluntary sector and beyond would sort of adopt this kind of creative design process for coming up with new solutions for social problems.
We do hope that some of the ideas might get taken forward and might turn into real kind of solutions, which could be either a case study or an app that loads of people can use to address a similar kind of problem. And we do hope that the people who are participating in the social innovation camp are better inspired and better kind of, and feel like they have the kind of personal agency to go forward and build their own kind of, apps or solutions to the problems they see around them.
We're launching our Counting the Cost survey. This is the 4th time we've done this survey. We survey families across the UK to find out how the economic cutbacks are affecting them. And we can do a direct comparison with each report and illustrate how the situation is getting more difficult for families with disabled children. We will support families with disabled children by giving them information on how to access services, on what support groups would be available, and we would give them benefits advice. We have a free phone helpline, which is 0808 808 3555, and they can ring and get help with that, or they can contact the Northern Ireland office directly. Families are going without basic essentials like heating or food. Leisure is totally out of the question because they simply cannot afford it. The increasing costs of utility bills and food here are having a disastrous effect on families, and that's before welfare reform cuts have been implemented in here, so a lot of people are anticipating that that's going to get worse.
I was asked by Contact the Family if I could come along and do a small speech on financial difficulties bringing up a child with different difficulties or disabilities. When you give up work to care for your son, sooner or later things do get on top of you and do catch up. There needs to be something in place rather than just a contact line or Citizens Advice Bureau who can aid practically out of that situation, so you can afford the necessities, not the luxuries. Going out for a meal, going to a restaurant, I'd love to do that. Practically, we couldn't afford it. We haven't been out in 7 years. It was, if you could wipe out some of the debt brought on by caring for a disabled child to get back on track and then have that financial help there when needed, that wouldn't happen in the first place.
It costs 3 times more to rear a child who has a disability, so therefore we must ensure that no one is left out, no one feels isolated, and that families get all the support that they need, that they deserve, and which is their right after all.
The heating costs in the winter is a really, really big thing. It goes up from a few pound a week. You might be paying £2.30, £40, £50 a week. It's money we haven't got. There has to be something on offer. I do think some sort of practical help with that can be set up. There has to be something with the school uniforms. Change it the way it's done instead of money, a voucher scheme. Lessen the money offered to children without disabilities and up it on the other sector. Lowering it a couple of pound a year is pennies per day, but yet the amount that could help for disabled families would be a huge benefit financially.
Each child with a disability is an individual, and each of them has their own individual needs, and sometimes sort of a blanket system doesn't cater for those needs. So we need to be aware of what those individual needs are.
I've already done a report that talks about the impact of welfare reform on children, and that includes children with disabilities. And we already know that there's a high percentage of children living in poverty, and the fact that if these welfare cuts are introduced, it's only going to make that worse for many families living in poverty. And we know that majority of families living in poverty are very often where there are parents working, so we're creating a class of working poor. But also the research shows that in England, Scotland and Wales there's been a spike in the number of families with children with disabilities who are now living in poverty because of the welfare implementation. So we haven't seen the worst of it yet because the welfare cuts haven't been implemented in Northern Ireland.
I think it's about increasing awareness and supporting these families. I think it's very important that government takes into account what is happening out there and that they try and ameliorate that situation by taking care of how welfare reform is implemented.
And worryingly, in England, Wales...
You feel totally isolated, yeah. If it wasn't for family support sometimes, financially, we'd be at a loss. It is, you're just left on with it, unless you've got contacts with people like today that contact the family, who at least are there to try and help you with some things which are needed. Yeah, you're left on your own.
The impact of this financial stress can have an impact on parents' mental health. It can lead to depression, it can lead to relationship breakdown, it can lead to a number of serious difficulties within families, and also can affect the child educationally. It can affect the parents' health, because if parents are going without food, how can they take care of a disabled child?
Many of these parents are full-time carers, and if we don't look after the carers, then who's going to look after the children? And I think we need to ensure that there's better support mechanisms in there for parents.
Hopefully an event like this can begin to change things, can have things implemented which will take the financial pressure off people. Do anything for your children.
I think the executive needs to make a conscious decision in ensuring that those very vulnerable children and young people are protected from any cuts that are coming down the line, and ensuring that they get the help and the support they get. I would say at the minute that's already under-resourced, and we need to ensure that by making further cuts that doesn't make that situation even worse.
We're really just asking that families with disabled children have a level playing field, that they have the same opportunities as other families.
Today's conference is a culmination of Bridge of Hope's Peace 3 funded legacy programmes. We've entitled the conference Building Peace to Last. Obviously we are in a very live political dynamic at present, and I think the importance of today's event, and indeed the importance of the programme over the last 3 years, has been to prove that grassroots communities and leaders on the ground are the people who do ultimately lead to peace, and the people who not just build peace, but more importantly again, sustain that peace.
I think what happened here today is that a lot of people who've done very deep-reaching emotional work on their personal conflicts and the conflicts in their community came together and really pooled all of their insights and their learning. And what strikes me most is that people have listened incredibly respectfully and with great attention, and that's always a testament to the work that has happened in the previous years between the groups, and that there is a lot of trust and a lot of openness and a lot of willingness to engage, which is something that can never be taken for granted.
I think today's events are critical in terms of consolidating the work and also affording the opportunity for funders and other statutory services and so forth that are with us here today to hear from the individuals themselves, because whilst there has been many difficult times in the past and conversations have been difficult, they have stuck with them through very difficult times in Belfast in recent years. They've engaged and they're here in their numbers today to engage. And as we're speaking, people are talking around the table, some very, very heavy, complex conversations, but they're doing it in a very mature way and from a very leadership perspective, which I think is incredible in terms of where we've moved to.
Well, I think the importance of it is it's about how we actually get people to work together to do peace building. I think that even if they don't do that, I think that as long as they take an understanding away and they've heard experiences from people from opposite political positions or opposite social positions, and they can go away and learn from those and actually do some work in their own communities around that and learn how to sort of not only, well, if they can learn how to do some of that sort of intra work and then look at if they wanted to do some inter work. But you know, people here will act as champions around being able to do that. So I think it's not just about sort of, you know, good relations, but it is about how you do conflict transformation.
Well, obviously, you know, for us, this work is critical in terms of particular areas like North Belfast, and we within Bridge of Hope have been involved in this work for the last 13 years. Sadly, Peace 3, our programme is coming to the end at the end of December, and as it's looking at the minute, it could be about a year's gap. But what we're hoping to do is at least the conversations that are taking place here today and that have you know, formed the basis of our Who Am I Making Sense of the Past programmes, that we will link with the Berkoff Foundation, Ulster University, to see how even in the interim that we can start to develop some mechanism in terms of to keep these important conversations going. But obviously we hope that within Peace 4 there will be a mechanism where this vital critical work can continue.
The Berkoff Foundation is a relatively small, about 40 staff, privately funded organisation that works to, we always call it, to create spaces for conflict transformation. So we work with local stakeholders in conflict settings to empower them and enable them to make a difference in their own settings and to build sustainable peace through conflict transformation. That takes many different shapes and forms. We do research, we engage in peace education, we have travelling exhibitions that tell successful stories of how local people actually build peace. We engage in supporting national dialogues in countries such as Yemen, as Lebanon, which are always volatile and at the brink of more far-reaching violence again. So that gives you quite a cross-section of what we're trying to do. And we're trying to always be led by what's actually needed on the ground and what people tell us they need.
Today's event and events like it are important because it sustains those relationships, it maintains those relationships, and I suppose the difficulty for us is that peace as a funding stream is coming to an end here at the end of this calendar year. So for us, we wanted to not just certainly use it as an opportunity to wrap up this programme and showcase and highlight some of the work we believe is very significant that we've been involved in, but also to try and inspire people to maintain that work, to keep at it, to keep building the peace, to go back out and utilise what they've learned and what they've gained from our processes back out in their communities and to go out there and keep contributing positively.
I think what would be brilliant is if there could be support to continue the cross-community work, and maybe to help people to start doing things, making a difference. We heard today that dialogue is the important first step, but after talking and listening, there should also be the doing. So I think if out of today came ideas of how to continue support for this work so that the people who have engaged in dialogue now are enabled to make a difference in their communities, that would be what I hope to come out of today.
Well, we decided that, now was the time to really speak out, because the way that the Irish language has been treated so disrespectfully recently, and also the fact that the Irish Language Act has just been blocked and ignored, we very strongly felt within Turris, within East Belfast, that we wanted to show the diversity of the Irish language community, that the Irish language doesn't belong to one political group or one religious group, that there are many people from all walks of life, all creeds and colours involved in the Irish language community, and that includes unionists.
Tá an ailte ribh phobal agus ribh Horace an seo inniu agus sílim gur iireacht iontach mai seo acu chuna léirú do pholaiteoirí ó achanfartí an seo nach le dramaháin an Gaeilge gur leis an phobal a lig an teanga agus gur cóir go mbeadh cómhas a léirú ar an Gaeilge gahéirithe seomar an John Nolan seo rud nach bhfuil ag tarlú ar an drochúir san am láthair.
Well, it's a good job that they're coming together for something, and I think it's good, and it's not forced, it's not contrived. I mean, we have learners in Skenos. My wife, of course, is Irish Language Development Officer in East Belfast, and you wouldn't have heard about that 10 years ago. It was like raising the Titanic. But we have been absolutely amazed at the response of people who, having been acquainted with the facts and history of their heritage and their language, just flock to it. I mean, for example, I was shocked to find out in the 1911 census that my grandparents and all my aunts and uncles were bilingual. They were English and Irish speakers. In fact, there were as many Irish speakers on the Shankill as there was in the Falls. So I was shocked to find this out. And basically, it's just actually acquainting people with what the language was about. And it transcended politics, it transcended these divisions. It was made toxic, of course, when the IRB under Padraig Pearse took over the Gaelic League. Douglas Hyde left, and it became a tool almost of Irish nationalism and became exclusive of the Northern Protestants.
Chilamuid go bhfuil cinneal de daireacht cultathe agus teangólaíochta caitianta ó gine. Idir Alban agus Erin agus idir na teangathe ceilteacha cumáid ar na Highline seo. Agus bhaithimid cumáid an bailachas fearr leis an ceis seo an normalú agus le húsáid na Gaeilge normalú cumáid sin nach na Gaeilge a thuirtaiste. Now go dtí ar na málamh bhíon pobl protestú nach cinneal áireasach an ceis sin mar go raibh méid sin ansithe deanta ar an Gaeilge agus deanta ar an concap sin go méú concentraíochta an den teanga. Ach sílim de réir céile go bhfuil se gal bhaim mar géine go dtigann siad go neanthú reachtaíocht Gaeilge, go neanthú chess bas a crothú den teanga agus dúsáid na teanga I réimsí agsal le taal. Agus mar sin de sílim go bhfuil séintú dearafa go bhfuil turas agus pobl ag teach le céile an seo. Le taspint den na politeoirí a rist eile go bhfuil an tosaí ar cursaí politeachta. Go bhfuil níos mó a gatianta ó gine na mar a scaran muid, agus go bhhaithling go ghlacad na politeoirí leis chatara sin, agus go mágad siad go dearafach ar ceisteach na Gaeilge.
So I believe that the people of the South suppressed their Britishness for political reasons, and the people of the North suppressed their Irishness for political reasons. And I think that's sad. I think what we need to do is to have a basis of reconciliation. I mean, because I have a couple of focal, That was all right, wasn't it? A couple of focal. It does not diminish my unionism. It doesn't diminish the fact that I am a United Kingdomer. I'm being a Carson unionist. I'm just yearning for the time when the 26 counties come back into the union that they left in 1922. It'd be wonderful to have a united British Isles, wouldn't it?
Sean Tian at na Hillan Sean Knockwell Raktiacht on